I'll share my screen. All right. So Nikita Taide. So you are not the one from Triumph's lab, right?
Yes, sir. I am also from Slack.
No, no. I mean, one person is there.
Yeah, yeah,
Who does?
Nikita D.
So that is different, and you are different, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So fine. So in the yesterday's session, we went through the software testing and automation as a whole, like what the industries are doing, what software testing is all about, and where will this automation come into picture, and basically what is automation, what are its advantages, what are its disadvantages, and what are the things we should consider when we are going to start with automation. These all things we saw yesterday. From today onwards, we are going to be more specific about the tool that we are going to learn, and it is going to be Selenium. Okay, so this is what the course is all about: Selenium WebDriver with Java. Let me open the Selenium's official website. So, if at all we want to learn this tool, the source of truth for us, like where we want to refer and learn, is going to be this website, because this is the website and the documentation that is prepared by the people who have created Selenium. If you go into this documentation section, you get to see a very nicely structured documentation about what Selenium is all about, how you should be using it, and all those things. And a lot of focus will be on this piece, WebDriver. Yeah, we'll come to know like why WebDriver is so popular and why everyone talks about this WebDriver, although Selenium has other components also. Okay. And based on this documentation only, whatever I will be teaching it will be based on this documentation. Okay. And of course, from my experience of using Selenium. So let's start with Selenium. So basically, even if you go to this website, the punchline is this one: Selenium automates browsers. That's it. It can be any browser, a Firefox, a Chrome, a Safari, a Microsoft Edge. Browser can be on a laptop or a desktop machine or on a mobile device also. Any browser you give it to Selenium, it automates it. That is the punchline they are telling here. So in order to automate the mobile browser, the context is little bit different. There we will be using Selenium inside another tool called as Appium. Okay, there is a tool. Again, it is an open source tool. You people might have also heard about it, called as Appium. File. There is something called as Appium. So basically, Appium is nothing but Selenium plus other components. They have built this Appium based on Selenium, but they have included some other components also that will assist us in handling a mobile device. So when it comes to handling a mobile browser, it is still going to be Selenium, which is present inside this Appium. Yeah, so that is what we need to understand here. But Selenium will automate any browser. That is the basic usage of Selenium. If you want to automate any web application, this tool will help you. And this tool has three components: Selenium IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment, and Selenium WebDriver and Selenium Grid. Out of these three components, Selenium Grid is used for execution. Okay. Selenium grid is not something which will help us automate the things. Instead, it will help us execute the things which we have already automated. So this is fine. Like grid is for execution. Fine. Then WebDriver is for automation. And we have another component IDE. This is also for automation. Okay. WebDriver, we cannot call it as a tool, mainly because it doesn't have its own UI. Say, for example, I will open this IntelliJ. Okay, this is one of the editor, and even the one in which I'm typing, this is Microsoft's Visual Studio Code. This is a tool because it comes with its own UI. And I can use the menu options in it, the drop downs in it. I can select few components and start using it like we do here. Like I can create a new file, whatever it is. But Selenium WebDriver will not have any UI. Then what it contains? It basically contains a set of APIs. APIs we can access by passing some commands. Okay, so that is what is this WebDriver. Okay, it is a set of APIs. So we will not exactly call this as a tool, but instead we call it as a set of libraries or a set of APIs or simply a framework. Then what is this IDE? It can be called as a tool, okay, Selenium tool, because it has its own UI, wherein we can basically go and select the options from its menu. Okay, so we'll see that one today. But before that, we need to understand how Selenium works. We know Selenium automates browsers, but how it automates? If I go to any website, let's say, let me open this one. So this is a website. This is the login page. And we can see as a human being, we can see this, there is a text here. It can be considered as a title text. There are this username text box, password text box, login button is there. There is some, content here. We as a normal human being, we see this thing, but Selenium will see it in a different way. It will see it as a code. If I do this right click and inspect, this thing will open up, and whatever we are seeing here, this is the code base for that UI content. Selenium basically tries to understand what the code is for a particular element. So this username text box is one element. It is a web element. This password text box is also one web element. This login button is also one web element. Similarly, this text is also one web element. Whatever we see on top of a web page will be a web element, and all those web elements will be having a corresponding tag in the code. This code we call it as a HTML code. You can see the root tag is HTML, and inside that we have sub tags. It is a nested layer of tags here. HTML is the parent tag, head is one more tag, body is one more tag. Inside body we have so many tags. There is something called as div, there is something called as form. Okay, there is something called as input. Like this, there will be n number of tags. So let me try to understand this one, username. So this username text box in the code of this web page, it is an input tag. So whenever Selenium wants to interact with this username text box, it, we should tell Selenium what is the tag of that element. Okay, that is an input tag. Okay, so this information, if we provide to Selenium and tell Selenium, go to this particular element and type something to it, it will do the job. Okay, so that is how Selenium works. So basically, first thing is we need to tell Selenium what is the tag of that particular web element. And to identify what is the tag, and we need to identify it uniquely, is what is called as element identification or element location. Okay. So this is going to be a huge task in automation. Element identification. This is where our Selenium locators will come into picture. Okay, so this is the first step. Okay, first we need to identify the element which we want to interact with. Then what is the second step? Tell Selenium to interact with that element. Now you people can just imagine what we can interact with. Any web element. Okay, let me close this window. Any web element let's take here. Either we will read this text, first interaction. Second interaction would be, let's say it is an input box, then we will type something to it. Second interaction. Third interaction would be, if it is a button, I can go and click on it. Only these three actions we can perform. Or these are the three ways in which we will be interacting with any web element on the web application. Okay. So we need to tell Selenium to interact with that web element. It is web element because we are dealing with web applications. If it is a mobile application, we call it as a mobile element. If it is a desktop application, we call it as a desktop element. Okay. Now, the second part is where the challenge comes. We need to tell Selenium to do something. How will we tell this? We need to tell Selenium in the language in which it understands. What it understands is it basically takes some API requests. Okay. Selenium takes API requests as inputs and performs actions. Okay, so now we are telling Selenium takes API requests as inputs and performs actions. So what all are the APIs present in Selenium? First, we need to understand those APIs. And then maybe we can send those as the request so that Selenium will perform the action. Let's say I want to type something into the input box. There will be one API in Selenium. I need to understand what is that API and in what format that takes the input, the request. So I need to form my request according to that API and send it to Selenium. Selenium will take it and process it. So understanding what all APIs are there in Selenium and how we can use them is what we will be learning in this WebDriver. Okay. So it is not like we will be going and learning what is the get call, what is the post call, what is the patch call and all. Instead, these APIs are present as commands for us. So Selenium people have simplified the usage of these APIs. APIs are available for usage as commands for us. Okay, so basically we need to understand what all commands are present in Selenium. Like for typing, there is one command. For clicking, there is one command. For reading the text, there is one command. For launching the browser, there is one command. For loading a particular URL, there is one command. So this is what we will be learning in Selenium WebDriver. Okay. So this is about the WebDriver, and already I said grid is about execution. Then what is this IDE? Why we should be learning this IDE? Okay. So I just told you how this Selenium works. This is the basic architecture. Okay, so to understand this architecture, we'll have to wait for some time because when we start with this section of Selenium, we will be in a better position to understand this architecture. Okay, so there are different components in this architecture. There is something called as W3C protocol, browser drivers, real browsers, and the Selenium client. On a high level, Selenium is nothing but a set of APIs. We need to, send our requests to those APIs, and we will be sending those requests through a programming language. That is what this client libraries is all about. So we will be using Java, Python, Ruby, whatever it is, and we will be giving that inputs to the Selenium APIs. And those APIs will follow this W3C standards. Okay, we'll understand what is this W3C, what was previous to this and all. And this commands that we are providing to Selenium through Java by following this W3C standards will be transferred to this browser drivers. Okay, and these drivers will interact with the real browser. So what are these browser drivers? This is something important. Okay, browser drivers are provided by browser companies itself. Let's say Chrome browser, there will be a Chrome driver provided by Chrome browser company itself. Chrome browser's company is Google. Google will provide this Chrome driver. Similarly, Firefox driver will be provided by the company which is developing this Firefox browser. Similarly, Safari driver will be provided by the company who is developing this Safari browser. What is the job of this driver? It helps in automation of this browser. It is like a helper tool that will help in the automation of the web browser. This is provided by the browser companies itself. Selenium will be using these helper tools. We can call them as a helper tools that will help in automation. Selenium uses these driver tools and does its job of automation. Okay. So in order to interact with any browser, we have to use its driver. Okay, so that is how this architecture is all about. This HTTP, we will be sending the API request as HTTP requests and getting the response as a HTTP response. So as I said, to understand this architecture properly, we'll have to, wait for some time. But on a high level, this is what it is. Okay. All right. So now let's. I have already shown you guys the official website of Selenium. Whenever you visit, you get to see these three components. Okay, and there is a section called as documentation. Whenever you people find some free time, I recommend you people start reading this one. It contains a host of information. Okay, all right, so now let's get started with this first component that is going to be this IDE. Okay, for that what we need to do is Selenium IDE for Chrome. Just we need to Google it out. And the first option where it says Chrome Web Store, we need to go inside this. And basically, this is a plugin that we need to add for our browser. Okay, I have already added it. Let me remove it. Okay, if you go here, this is what it is, Selenium IDE. Let me remove it. It's a very simple process to add it. Just come to this website. Okay, Selenium IDE, add it to Chrome. That's all. It will be automatically added. All right, Selenium IDE has been added to Chrome. Once added, you just have to launch it. So this is how the Selenium IDE looks like. That is why we can call this as a tool. Whereas Selenium WebDriver is not a tool because Selenium WebDriver will not have anything like this. Like this IDE is having its own UI now. Selenium WebDriver will not have anything like this. So now what I will do is I will create a new project. Let me name it as new project. These are all user defined names. You can give anything. I will click on OK. So this project is created. Inside this project, I need to create a test suite or test. Let me just create a test. Okay. So add a new test. Let me name it as demo one. Any name can be provided. Okay. So now this demo one test case is created. So what this tool basically enables us is, let me delete this default one. This will enable us to record a test script. So to understand that, what we'll do is we will just record one test script. So in order to record, what I will do, there is this button start recording. So I will click on this. So the moment I click on this record button, this window or this pop-up opens up where I need to pass the base URL. Okay, so let me give https. You can give anything. Let's say Google. Google.com. And I need to click on the start recording. So the moment I clicked on start recording, what happened is it launched a Chrome browser window. This window is different from the window that I have opened earlier. This is what I am currently working on by opening multiple tabs. But the Selenium IDE has opened its own window, a separate window. Okay. And in the right bottom corner, you can see that Selenium IDE is recording that message is showing up. Now, Selenium IDE is active, and whatever you do on this browser will be recorded by this IDE. Let's say what I will do is there is this Google text. I want to validate this text. So what I will do, I will right click. I will come to the Selenium IDE, verify this text. This is first thing I want to do. Second, I will click on this search box and I will type Selenium. Okay, that's all. That's all I want to do with this website. After I do this, I will close this browser. Okay, I need to, okay, all right. So this is our ID. So it is still recording. Okay, although I have closed the browser window, I need to stop this recorder. Okay, I will just click on the stop recording. The moment I stop this recording, whatever the actions I performed, they are recorded as steps here. The first is to open a particular URL, and then I will be clicking on something and I am typing something and closing on it. Okay, so I can basically run it back. It opened this particular thing and it typed and it closed. Although it was too fast so that we could not see it, what it is actually doing. So what I will do is I will add some wait time. So maybe I will add it before it closes. I will add a new command. Okay. And this command will be to wait for some time. Okay. I will use this pause. This be close, this close, and let me wait for 5 seconds. So I'm giving 5,000 here because this time duration is in milliseconds. So if I say 5,000, it is equivalent to 5 seconds. So what I did is whatever the recorded steps were there in those steps, I added one more steps in between, just before the step where it closes the browser, to wait for 5 seconds and then close it. Okay, so now let me once again run this. It launched the browser, it clicked here. Okay, although it is not, it waited for 5 seconds, it is not able to type that Selenium. That's fine. This is still our first test script. So what I will do is, similarly, I will add one more test case. Okay, let me name it as second test case, demo 2. And now let me record this one. And for this, let me use a different URL. Okay, so I will give it at the time of recording. So what I will do, TPS, I will use a website where I can basically do some operation like a login operation. Okay, there is this website sourcedemo.com, and I will click on this start recording. Again, the same process is happening. It is launching its own browser, and it is basically observing this browser. What is observing? Selenium is observing this browser, and whatever I do on this browser, it will capture it as a step. First step, what I will do, the swag labs text is there. I will right click on it, come here, and I will basically verify the title of it. So that means this swag labs is a title. I am validating this title. First step. Second step, I will enter the username. The username and password are given in this page itself. In the bottom, you can see accepted usernames and password for all users. So I will use this information and type it out. Standard user is the username. This is the password. And then I will click on login. Okay. So once I come here, what I will do is, maybe I will try to validate this add card button. Right click, inspect, verify whether this particular button is present. Okay, this is all I want to do. Or maybe I will click on this add to cart button. Okay, then it changed to this remove. These operations I'm doing, and again I will close this browser window. I will stop the recording. Okay, so now what we need to understand is, this is a tool that is helping us to record our test scenario. So what we will do in a normal testing process, okay, let me go to this particular URL. Let's say I want to test this application. Okay, first thing first, I will load this URL. Okay, in a normal manual testing, what we will do, we will load this URL. The next assertion will be to check whether this application is actually loaded or not. In manual testing, we can visually see it and confirm it. Okay, this has loaded. But in automation, we need to validate that loading of the URL is successful or not. How we will do? We will check anything on this page. Let's say this is the title text. If this title text is present, then I am sure that this application is actually loaded, because automation will be done by code, not by a human being. Okay, so this is my first step. Second step is I am entering this information. Username, this is the password, and I'm clicking on login button. After login also, I need to verify the login is successful or not. In manual testing, we can visually verify it. In automation, we need to specify by, you know, doing some verification of any content here in the second page. This is like our dashboard page after login. So what I'm doing, I'm verifying whether this add to cart button is present or not. If after clicking on login button, if Selenium is able to find this add to cart button, then it means login operation is successful. This is like the second validation. Then what I'm doing, I'm clicking on this add to cart button so that this particular item gets added to the cart. Okay, we can see it has been added to this cart. Okay, so this is what I'm doing, and then I will be closing the browser. Let me go back to this IDE, and all these operations, whatever I did on the Selenium IDE's browser, all those have been recorded as steps here. Whatever I did, they are recorded as steps. The advantage of this is once it gets recorded, I can run it back. It loaded, it is typing username, password. It also added this, button. And because we have this close, that pop-up opening up, it did not close it. But that's fine. But what we need to understand is this tool, what it is doing here. It is recording the actions or the interactions that we are doing with the web browser, and it is recording them as steps. And the advantage is once it records them, I can basically execute them back. Let me once again execute it. Okay, let me stop the current execution and let me once again run it. Okay, so this is how this record and playback tools will work. First thing what we did, we recorded a test scenario, and after we recorded it, what we are doing, we are running them back. So that is what is called as record and playback tool. So this IDE is a record and playback component of Selenium. Okay. So this is all what this IDE tool provides for us. We can record our test scenario. If required, we can add our own commands. Like let's say I want to insert a new command here. Okay. If you, there is this, in this bottom section, if you click on this drop down, you can see all these commands. So while explaining Selenium WebDriver, I said it is a collection of, or it is a set of APIs which are provided to us as commands. So this is one command that is means it has its own API. Next one is one command, it has its own API. Like this, there will be so many commands. Consequently, there will be so many APIs. And what we will be learning, we will not be learning those APIs, but instead we will be learning these commands. Like there is something called as double click. There is something called as click. All these things we will be learning. Okay. So if you know these commands, you can simply add those commands. Like I did something here, like add selection, what is the target, what is the value, you can put some description and all. If you don't know these commands, you simply open the recorder by clicking on this recorder window. Okay, it starts recording, and whatever interaction you do, it will automatically record it. Okay, so that is how this particular tool will work. And when this tool is recording your test steps, although it is showing them as a plain command, a set of commands here, in the background, it is generating code for it by itself. Because Selenium has to, basically for Selenium, we need to give the commands through a code, a programming language. We are not saying any Java code here or a Python code here. But in the background, this IDE is doing that job for us. So how to check that one? We can actually click here and click on this export, and you see these options. It is telling select the language. C sharp with N unit, C sharp with X unit, Java with J unit, JavaScript, Mocha, Python, Ruby. So it is giving us 6 options. And out of this, I can select any one. Let me go with Java J unit first. Click on this export. And I will store it into some location. Let me go here, IDE basics. This is my first test. Okay, let me go to that location. This is the location. This is the first test. and let me open it. This is how the code is looking. On the front end, in the IDE, what we are seeing, this is what it is. 5 simple steps. Open the browser, set the window size, the browser window size, click on a particular button, pause for 5 seconds and close the browser. This is what we have done. And what does the code look like? This is how it looks like. Okay, and you can see all the information here. This is the URL what we actually loaded. This is where we are setting the window size. And this is where we are clicking on something. And this is where we are waiting for 5 seconds. And this is where we are closing the browser window. Okay, so this is how the Java code will look like. If you are not recording any script, and instead if you type all these lines of code, it will still do the same job. It will open this Chrome browser, it will go to this URL, set the window size, it will click on something, it will wait for 5 seconds and it will close it. Okay. So before continuing, let me restart this meeting. Okay, meeting time is getting over. So let me quickly restart this. It will be the same link. We'll have to just rejoin. Okay, let me restart this one.